Hey Rude Boys, how's it going? This video's a long time coming, so here it is. My single action 22 Magnum. Hey, wait a sec. What was that?
FBI, open up!
Ooh, okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties there, boys. Now, if you turn it, you'll notice that it actually has two ejector ports for double the ejecting. A moot point and not entirely necessary, but I wanted something at least a little different for this revolver. And it works well. It does its job, it ejects two cases at once, loading time is more or less the same, but you know, I guess you have to turn it only 3 times now, saves a couple seconds on reloading, and not much else. Mainly just a semi-solution for a problem that was solved, I don't know, 100 years ago. Now, like I said earlier, it was a parts kit, so not everything was homemade. The hand, the frame, ejector rods, base pin were all me, and measuring isn't my strong point, so I had to heavily modify the hammer, trigger, flat spring, and the barrel is kind of just welded onto the gun, cause reasons. I know, not the best welds, but this was kind of the only reason I even got a welder, so I haven't been the most experienced. Now, the real reason I made the whole frame again was just dumb. I was just stupid. Originally, some time ago, this was a Colt Frontier Scout, and silly old me did not know that they made the frames out of aluminum back then. So I was already pretty invested in this, and I decided, hey, how hard could brazing be? Seems simple enough. I'll just braze a bunch of scrap aluminum to the frame, and about a week later, I realized that was not going to work out. I had some flat steel laying around, and I just matched it up to the frame as best as I could, and eventually I had a Colt. Although when I pulled the hammer back, it did not spell Colt. It spelled Cole, C-O-L. And so me and my Cole are off to a good start. We're going to Reddit at this point. I asked some questions about how to go about making this, and some people talked about milling machines and lathes and I don't know, all this random machinery I've never heard of, but you know, that was way out of my budget. I ended up reluctantly buying a welder and a drill press I got off Amazon, along with a set of files from Home Depot, and by now I was already breaking the bank. The parts kit was already $200 because it said Colt on it, and the tools were about $200 as well. But so far, my progress is good, at least I thought so. This was the picture I uploaded to them, and then they stopped talking to me.
Are you sure about that?
I was a little discouraged, but I decided to get back to work on it and see if I could continue making this thing into an actual revolver. Before this, I've only ever shot a 1911 and a .38 Special Smith & Wesson, and God, when I was holding this, I felt chills up my spine. I felt like it was the last time I would ever see all of my fingers on my hand. And yep, the pin actually ended up piercing the bullet from the back, lighting and blowing the gunpowder both forward and also at my face. Laugh at me all you want for having a baby caliber, but at this moment I was very happy I only got a 22 Magnum. Now I didn't realize this then, but it was actually because the hole where the firing pin was going through was just a little too wide. So naturally I expanded the hole more because I thought that if it had enough space to do whatever, it'll finally be able to remove the round without disassembling the whole thing. The times when the bullet wasn't pierced by the firing pin, it would expand so much out the back that it would get stuck, and I wouldn't be able to remove it without disassembling the whole thing. And it took me like 3 times to actually figure this out. So, you know, it's 3 trips to the range, shooting 1 bullet, and then promptly returning home very soon after. Eventually, I got the idea through my head that maybe I should make the hole very tight around the firing pin. Took me a while. But as I fixed one problem, I soon realized there was another. The firing pin was just welded onto the hammer, and that's kind of what I thought they did for most of the revolvers, at least back then. And the issue was, as I kept firing this thing, it would just fall out. Eventually I got so sick of it that I just JB welded it back, and obviously it fell out again. But eventually I got around to making one that was just embedded into the frame, how the gun was originally made. I don't know. It ended up working now, and it's kind of just hastily welded together because I was very frustrated at this point. But now it looks good. It works. Well, it doesn't look good, but it works. And it's a part of my little revolver. It does its job. And by this point, the revolver actually kind of started working somewhat. Let's move on to some of the quirks it's got. One thing, it doesn't really have loading gates. I opted to just make a circular outline around the edges, made out of a large socket that I just found somewhere, so that the top and bottom aren't too thin. See, because of the dual ejecting, the edges got so thin that a gust of wind probably could have just snapped it in half. So this kind of supports it a little bit more, and it does its job. The only issue is that since they never really close, you can't shoot up. You can shoot down, you can shoot straight, but you're going to be severely disappointed at the sudden reduction of capacity if you decide to point this thing over, I don't know, a 55-degree angle. Here's an example. Stop right there, villain! Oh no. Oh, shoot. Also, another slight quirk is that I don't think the cylinder, lines up completely with the barrel until the trigger is pulled. I ain't really sure, why this happens, but I haven't exploded yet, so I'll just work with it, you know. Also, probably a lot of you are wondering why I don't just, sand and shave the ugly bits. And honestly, it's just because I'm kind of tired of working on this thing. All the main stuff took maybe 4 months to make in between doing it late at night after work and keeping up with other social stuff and relationships and normal people things. Just looking at this thing gives me flashbacks to more grinding, welding, and suspicious hardware store purchases. While I was making this, I was posting more to Reddit, but unfortunately on another account. So I lost most of the pictures that I made or I have of this thing. I don't have the exact process to everything, but it wasn't too difficult. I also entered a contest to build guns, DIY guns, and I didn't really understand the contest or how to enter, but I was just proud of my little plinker and I wanted to show it off. Also, I may have mentioned before, this thing is heavy. Weight reduction is not a concern here. And that also helps with another feature, the alternate fire. Yes, this is a 7-shot revolver, but wait, it has 6 chambers in the cylinder. I'm a man of great innovation, I'll have you know. And this is just one of my many innovations. Alright, now we're out here on the range right now, so please bear with any gunfire you hear in the background. I'll be shooting the jug on the left with a normal bullet, and the jug on the right with my alternate fire mode. Now, I'll show you it only has 1 bullet, but pay close attention or you'll miss it. Did you see it? Let's rewind in slow motion so we can get a better look at it. Oh yeah, direct hit. Patent pending. Yeah, this thing doesn't really shoot very big bullets, but it makes up for it by feeling so heavy and manly. Now, from all of this you probably get the idea that it's not a very effective weapon, which is absolutely true. I'm not particularly a gun nut either, especially with the new tactical guns. I don't know, they're kind of just a put off for me, a lot of squares. Never really been a fan of ARs or Glocks or really anything that looked like it would function consistently and stay reliable for more than 6 rounds. Besides that, the top is just a thick piece of pipe, the bottom is a flat piece of steel, little notches grinded out at the bottom, and the side pieces were done with more flat steel, a little bit of grinding, and eventually everything fit, and once it did, I drilled holes and used a tap and die to thread it. After that, I took a quick trip to AutoZone and found a nut that could fit the barrel, then some grinding on the hammer, the trigger, and the cylinder stop. And eventually it got to working out. If you're planning on making something like this, please don't. There are a lot of quirks, and by quirks I just mean chances of blowing up. But if you do, start with a small caliber. You'll thank me when you only use 1 finger instead of your whole hand. And also, don't be stupid like me and get the only gun in existence made out of aluminum, just to stick with it cause man reasons and also lack of funding. All in all, you might be wondering why I even built this thing, and I wish I had an actual answer for you. In reality, I just wanted to see if I could do it. I always had a passion for building things, but they never really turned out right. You could blame my lack of measuring or focus. Even with this gun, I maybe only measured the metal I was working on maybe twice, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't put any effort into it. It may not have had a purpose when I started, but I will admit now it really feels like a safety net. It's been months since the completion, and now it simply sits under my bed collecting dust in a very nice case. But I know that if I ever need it for an emergency, it's always going to be right there waiting for me. At that moment, all the sanding, grinding, fitting, and filling will be worth it, because it'll be protecting me and the ones I love. Sorry if you're from Reddit and you're tired of hearing about the little scrap revolver that could. I am working on new firearms, all original this time, with a lot of uniqueness behind it. If you have any questions or insults, you can find me in the little red Mercedes outside your local Home Depot.